The auction yard was a cacophony of hooves and shouts, dust swirling under the Wyoming sun, but Caleb Hawthorne stood frozen, his calloused hand gripping the lead rope of his prized stallion, Thunder. The horse's coat gleamed like polished obsidian, muscles rippling with every restless step. Thunder was more than a horse, he was Caleb's legacy, the last tether to a life that had crumbled when his wife, Clara, died 3 years ago. Yet here he was, about to trade this magnificent creature for a stranger's promise. A woman named Elise, a pianist who claimed she could see nothing but played like she saw everything, had made an offer no one else in the crowd dared to match, her music for his horse. The townsfolk whispered, "Caleb's lost his mind." Maybe he had. But as he looked at Thunder, then at the frail figure waiting by the old piano in the corner of the yard, something in his chest stirred a flicker of hope he hadn't felt since Clara's laughter filled their ranch. Caleb was 42, broad-shouldered, with eyes that carried the weight of too many lonely nights. He'd built his life on horses, breeding champions that ranchers from Montana to Texas paid top dollar for. Thunder was his masterpiece, a stallion whose lineage promised a fortune. But the ranch was failing. Bills piled up, the land grew parched, and Caleb's heart had grown emptier than the stalls he could no longer afford to fill. Clara's death had gutted him, leaving a void no horse could fill, not even Thunder. He'd heard about Elise through a traveling merchant, a woman who played piano in saloons and barns, her fingers weaving magic despite her blindness. She'd arrived in town a week ago, her presence like a soft wind, stirring whispers of her talent and her strange, shrouded eyes. Caleb didn't believe in miracles, but when Elise offered to trade her music, her very soul, she called it, for Thunder, he felt a pull he couldn't explain. Elise was 29, slight as a willow, with a scarf tied loosely over her eyes. She never removed it, claiming blindness since childhood, though no one could confirm it. Her hands, though, were undeniable long, delicate fingers that danced across piano keys with a precision that made grown men weep. She'd come to the auction uninvited, her weathered upright piano hauled in a rickety cart by a hired hand. When she played, the crowd fell silent, even the horses seemed to listen. Her music wasn't just notes, it was a language of longing, of loss, of things unspoken. Caleb had stood at the edge of the crowd, his hat low, feeling her melody unravel the knot in his chest. When she finished, she called out to him, her voice soft but sure, "I'll trade my music for your horse, Mr. Hawthorne. Not just one song, every song, for as long as you need." The crowd laughed, thinking it a jest. A horse worth thousands for a blind woman's tunes? But Caleb saw her trembling hands, heard the sincerity in her voice, and something in him broke open. The deal was struck that day. Thunder's lead rope passed to Elise's hired hand, who promised to deliver the horse to a buyer in Colorado. In return, Elise would stay at Caleb's ranch, playing her piano until the debt she felt she owed was paid. The townsfolk called it madness, but Caleb didn't care. He drove Elise back to his ranch in silence, her small frame swaying with the truck's motion, her scarf catching the light. The ranch was a shadow of its former self, fences sagging, fields barren, the house echoing with Clara's absence. Elise settled into the guest room, her piano squeezed into the living room beside Clara's old rocking chair. That first night, she played. The notes drifted through the house, soft and mournful, then bright and defiant, as if tracing the contours of Caleb's grief. He sat on the porch, whiskey in hand, tears burning his eyes. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. Days turned into weeks, and Elise became a quiet fixture in Caleb's life. She played every evening, her music filling the ranch with a warmth it hadn't known since Clara. But she was a mystery. She moved through the house with uncanny ease, never stumbling, her scarf always in place. Caleb caught her sometimes, pausing by the window, her head tilted as if watching the horizon. He began to wonder if she was truly blind. He'd ask her about her past, but she'd deflect with a smile or a change of subject, her fingers never far from the piano. "Music's my eyes," she'd say. "It sees what I can't." Caleb didn't press, but doubts gnawed at him. Was she hiding something? Had he been a fool to trade Thunder for a stranger's promise? The first challenge came with the ranch's mounting debts. A banker from town, Mr. Grayson, arrived one morning, his suit crisp against the dusty backdrop of the ranch. He demanded payment or the land would be seized. Caleb's pride stung. He'd never begged, never faltered, but the numbers didn't lie. Elise overheard the conversation and, that evening, played a melody so fierce it seemed to shake the walls. Afterward, she told Caleb, "Let me perform in town. People will pay to hear me. We can save the ranch." Caleb hesitated. He didn't want to exploit her, but desperation won. They set up her piano in the town square, and word spread fast. By dusk, a crowd gathered, ranchers, shopkeepers, even travelers passing through. Elise played, her fingers a blur, her music weaving stories of heartbreak and hope. The hat at her feet filled with bills and coins, enough to buy Caleb a month's grace with the bank. But as the crowd cheered, Caleb noticed a man in the back, his face shadowed, watching Elise too closely. When he asked her about it later, she shrugged, but her hands shook. The second challenge was trust. Caleb's doubts about Elise's blindness grew. One night, he saw her slip outside, scarf off, staring at the stars. She moved with purpose, not the cautious steps of someone blind. He confronted her the next morning, his voice rough with betrayal. "You're not blind, are you? What else are you lying about?" Elise's face crumpled, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she told him her truth. Her name wasn't Elise, it was Anna. She wasn't blind, but she'd worn the scarf since escaping an abusive husband who'd tracked her across states. The scarf was her shield, her music her refuge. She'd seen thunder at the auction, seen Caleb's pain, and felt a kinship. "I traded for your horse because I saw you were as lost as I am," she said, tears spilling. "I wanted to give you something real." Caleb's anger dissolved into shame. He'd judged her, doubted her, when she'd given him more than he'd given himself in years. The final challenge came when Anna's past caught up. The man from the town square, her husband, tracked her to the ranch. He arrived one stormy night, pounding on the door, demanding Anna return with him. Caleb stood between them, his fists clenched, but Anna stepped forward, her scarf gone, her eyes blazing. "I'm not yours anymore," she said, her voice steady. The man lunged, but Caleb was faster, his rancher's strength sending the man sprawling. The confrontation ended with the sheriff hauling the man away, Anna's testimony sealing his fate. In the aftermath, she and Caleb sat by the piano, the storm raging outside. She played a new melody, soft and tentative, then strong and sure. "This one's for you," she whispered. Caleb realized then that he loved her not as a replacement for Clara, but as a woman who'd seen his brokenness and chosen to stay. Months later, the ranch was thriving. Anna's performances had drawn crowds from neighboring towns, their donations rebuilding fences and restocking stalls. Caleb bred new horses, none as grand as Thunder, but each a step toward a future he could believe in. Anna stayed, her scarf retired, her eyes hazel and fierce, meeting his without fear. One evening, as she played, Caleb joined her on the piano bench, his rough hands resting beside hers. The music swelled, and the townsfolk gathered outside, drawn by the sound. They saw a man no longer lonely, a woman no longer hiding, and a ranch reborn from their shared courage. The story ends with a message: sometimes, the things we trade, be it a horse or a hidden truth, open doors to healing we never imagined. Caleb and Anna didn't just save the ranch, they saved each other, proving that even in our loneliest moments, connection can find us, if we're brave enough to let it.